Hey, good morning. Welcome to my live stream. Thanks for tuning in. I think I'm live on Facebook, YouTube, and I hope Instagram. Yes. So, hello for people being here and hanging out with me. It's a very busy week for me at Swan Lake at National Ballet. I see a couple people here, so thanks for showing up. I have a whole bunch of questions here to cut through, but if you have questions for me, type them in the chat. And if you're here, let me know where you're from. Type in the chat what city or country you're in. It's really nice for me to know that we're coming together from around the world, especially with whatever is going on in the world right now. I like to note that when we come together to better ourselves in an art form that is absolutely beautiful. Music can change lives, and music can make us happy. Music can feed our souls and give us creative expression. So it's nice for me to know where you're coming from so that we can share this love and this passion together. So go ahead, type in the chat where you are, which country you're in, which city, where you're in, where you're tuning in from, Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram. That'd be really cool. Okay, so I better get started because I have to teach and coach my VIP students soon. Okay, anyone gonna say hello to me? I don't see any comments so far. Who's gonna say hi first? Who's the first to say hi? In the meantime, let me share with you something that just came in the mail. Okay, I don't know if you can see this. Toronto Musicians Association. This pin came in the mail. It says I've been in the Toronto Musicians Association for 25 years. Amazing, right? I can't believe I'm that old. And then this one came a couple years ago. This is my 20-year pin of the National Ballet. I just had to do show and tell. Okay, all right. No one's going to say where they're from. Tell me where you're from. Where are you watching from? Are you on YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook? No one's going to say hello? No one's going to say hello or say a question? All right, let me start the Q&A here. I have a whole bunch of questions submitted. No one's going to say where they're from? Where are you watching from? Okay, let's see. A whole bunch of questions here. Okay, the first question I have here is from Catherine Schreiber. What should I be able to perform in 5 years of playing and practice? Okay, so I thought about this question. It's really difficult to answer that, Catherine, because it depends on how intense your training is. If you are practicing daily, if you practice daily, how much do you practice every single day? Are you just dabbling? Are you very serious? How much time are you devoting to it? Are you a beginner starting from scratch? Do you have previous musical training with other instruments? It is really difficult for me to say. I would say, I only say that too because I was doing karate, and people will say, well, what belt are you at? And after 7-8 years, I am at green belt. And you would think I would be past that, but I've spent, I think, a couple of years at green belt only because I haven't been able to train. So it really depends on how intense your training is. So after 5 years of practice, I would think that you would be at, let's say, intermediate level, hopefully. I mean, depending on how serious you are. Maybe if you're really keen, you'd be at an advanced level. Or maybe if you're just dabbling, you'd be just happy to stay at a beginner level. Really hard for me to say. Okay, Oasis Computers. I am. What does that mean? I am. Where are you from, Oasis Computers? You want to tell me where you're from? Okay, I have a question here from Sevinch Yusifova. You have trouble with first finger vibrato. I have a couple of questions about first vibrato, actually. So one of them is also a question from David Dobrigno. I'm sorry, I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. So I'll answer this question about vibrato. David, your question is about pinky wrist vibrato, and it lacks clarity with rather muddy sound, no resonance, playing D, fourth finger D on the G string. And then Sevinch, your question is about first finger vibrato. Well, what I want to do is point you to my tutorial playlist. Actually, I have a whole entire playlist dedicated to vibrato tutorials, and I'm going to drop it in the chat. Okay, so that's my vibrato tutorial. It's a whole entire playlist, okay? Playlist dedicated to learning the vibrato. I even have 12 tips on how to improve your vibrato and make beautiful sound. But in terms of your question about first finger vibrato. That's true. The first finger vibrato is probably not as easy as second finger vibrato and third finger vibrato. I feel like these two middle fingers are easier than the first and fourth. So it's interesting how we're discussing these fingers that are a little bit more difficult. You want to be able to do exercises regularly that train the mobility of the joints inside the finger. Well, all of the joints. But when I teach vibrato, I always want to ensure that the person has freedom in all the joints. And I touch here at this area here because in my vibrato tutorials on YouTube, and you'll see that I include as far into the armpit, the chest, and the back. If there's any one joint that locks up, it will start to create a chain reaction to the other smaller joints inside the finger, meaning that your vibrato will be very stiff. So for first finger vibrato and for fourth finger vibrato, let me start with first finger vibrato. You want in particular to get mobility in this joint, this knuckle here, all right, the distal joint. And to train that, there's an exercise that I have 7 best exercises for vibrato, but you want to develop in this first finger as well as the second, third, and fourth vibrato, the flexibility of that finger. So let me do here so you can see better. So you're going to do what I call the knuckle collapse exercise. So you're collapsing the knuckle. This is not the true vibrato motion, but what it is, it's a range of flexibility in your joint that becomes, let's say, responsive when you want to initiate a first finger vibrato. So if your first finger is stiff, tight, and locked, then this joint will not be able to collapse. So when you start to, let's say, do a wrist vibrato or arm vibrato, I don't like to distinguish between wrist and arm vibrato. But when I vibrate, you can see that the knuckle is forgiving, it's flexible and responsive. If it's locked and you try to vibrate, see, I'm trying to move my wrist in a wrist vibrato, and that joint here, the distal joint, is stubborn, then this vibrato is going to be very difficult. Another thing that I talk about is loose thumb. Okay, so I would suggest, I don't have time to cover vibrato in depth, and I would suggest you click on the playlist for my vibrato tutorials. I explain everything in detail. And the fourth finger, for David, your question, fourth finger, it sounds to me, if your tone is not clear, it sounds to me that the string needs to be fully depressed all the way to the string. And that sounds to me like a left hand positioning issue. So let's say you have a left hand that looks like this. It's hard for me, this is a pancake wrist, as you see, flat pancake like this. And not that your hand looks like that, but that's one thing that could be happening to someone who has unclear, muddy sound. So I'm not able to depress the string fully to the fingerboard. The first step is to get that string touching the fingerboard. Clean and clear sound, and then we apply the same principle that I said to Sevinch about encouraging that joint to have mobility, not being stiff. And that comes with exercises such as the knuckle collapse exercise, and one of my favorite exercises for vibrato. Thank you for the thumbs up. I can't see who did it, but thank you so much. Okay, so I would suggest you go to my vibrato tutorials, all right? I'm sorry that I won't be able to give you more detail than that. Thank you for the heart. I see them coming in. Thank you so much. I wish I can give you more detail, but I did a whole entire 1 hour workshop on vibrato. An hour long tutorial, free. Totally free workshop. You just click on that playlist. It's right there. And I have a whole bunch of tutorials there, okay? So let me move on to the next question. This is Sister Marie-Therese Swizinski's question. Sister Marie-Therese is awesome. She keeps coming back and back. So your question is about any tips or tricks for fingering in orchestra passages with lots of chromatic fourths and fifths, like Elgar's Enigma Variation number 2. So yes, I actually went and found it. You're welcome, David. I think so. Oh, I thank you for the comment. I see you there. I'm glad you're here. Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so Sister Marie-Therese, I'm looking at this. You said you were practicing DSOs. So for anyone who doesn't know my term, DSO, for me, it's an acronym that I use to denote double stop opportunities. So Sister Marie-Therese, you're doing the right thing. I would practice double stops in Elgar's Enigma variation, that second variation. I'm looking for double stops in the excerpt. There's a double stop of a fifth. There's a perfect fourth. And then I would probably, I would use open. There's a double stop here. But you're probably wondering about... or maybe this one after rehearsal 6. So I would definitely find double stops, as you said. I think the biggest tip that I have is making sure that you train your hand. And this question is going to address Marguerite Armstrong's question too. Left hand frame tips. Left hand frame tips. In order to develop a better left hand technique, I'm also answering someone else's question about, oh gosh, let's see. Ariel Wagner, your question is about how to practice for more fluidity, fluid movements, more control. Ricky Phillips, you also want to train your fingers for left hand technique. So I'm going to answer all your questions at once. Training your left hand comes from scales and double stops in particular. So Sister Marie Therese's question is about string crossings. Oh, and we have another question about fast string crossings from Helga Clem. Okay, so maybe this is a perfect example. When you want to do fast string crossings and develop left hand technique, double stops are your best friend. You can quote me on that, all right? If you want, type that into the chat. What gets written down gets remembered. If you want, and also, oh, we have another question here about how to play faster. Who answered? How to play fast? This is Jan Burnett's question. So this is answering all of your questions at once. Playing fast, playing double stops, trains your left hand. Also helps you build speed, build dexterity, and build your hand frame. So I'm going to look in this Elgar excerpt for double stops. So for example, I'm sorry I don't have the music in front of me or for you to see, but this passage here, there is a fifth. So I would encourage you to find a fifth. Now there's an extension, tritone, which makes you go into this second position on the G sharp. Okay, so then if we train your left hand, always remember your spacings. Okay, so we went from third position, extension. This is normal 1, you go into an extension. So the trick for left hand here, what I'm trying to address here is knowing when you practice your scales, you're going to know a typical finger pattern. That's what I'm looking for. When you practice scales, you start to learn typical finger patterns like this, so that when you start in this, you're in this finger pattern, which you've practiced inside of a scale. Then once you practice this, your left hand will remember it more quickly. So how do you build speed? Keep practicing left hand formations until they become automatics, until you never have to think about them. Then when you have to intentionally move out of the hand frame, so let's say I keep my fourth finger here, Sister Marie Therese is learning Elgar Enigma variations, and this one will go outside of the hand frame, as you can see here. But this fourth finger remains the same. So if you want to practice for consistency in left hand, so this is a good left hand exercise too, you can do this. Okay, so already I'm keeping the hand consistent, but the fingers are going outside of frame. This one's going out of frame and going back into frame. And this one remains the same. So this is a good way of training. How can you go in and out of a finger pattern? So let's continue. So now the one has moved into a half position, a second and a half position on G sharp. Now, if you've practiced your scales, again, left hand frame, left hand technique. I'm also answering someone else's question. How do I improve my playing in general? Whose question is that? Oh gosh, so many questions. How do I improve my playing in general? So this is one of the, I'm so sorry, they're all over the place here. The questions here. But now if you're in this scale, you can play a scale here. Okay, so So here's an example. You're playing G sharp, A, B, C sharp. And then if you now chromatically change this fourth finger, you're training the dexterity of your fourth finger. And then separate bows, legato, etc. So now you can identify perfect fourth and then diminished fourth. So the beginning of the passage charts, there's a perfect fifth, double stop opportunity. Starts out of tune. Now I'm in a half position, the second and a half position. So this is collapsed to that. So all of this now is in second position. Now I'm creeping down to second position. Okay? So now I'm still in second position, but now I'm going to shift to third position, now going into, this is an extension hand frame. So what I'm doing, okay, what I'm doing is going in and out of finger patterns. So we cannot go in and out of finger patterns reliably unless you know what the solid finger patterns are and what position you're in. So Sister Marie Therese is correct. You're correct to be practicing double stops. That way you train your hand in the positions. For example, this third position, this fifth and third position. And then so go to this one. That's a, let's say, second position. This is also second position, right? Okay. All right. So I hope that answers some of your questions. How can I improve my playing faster? How can I improve my left hand? Scales, double stops, and crossing the strings. If you want to develop fast string crossings, this is the question. Oh gosh, the question from Helga Clem. How do you do string crossings? I know it's bow technique, but in order to get good string crossings that are quick, your left hand needs to be stable first. Okay. Let me go in order. Sister Demetrius, I hope that gives you a brief answer to your question. I have to go quickly through many questions. Let's see, Anthony. I would like to know how to learn and practice the bow hold with correct posture and technique. Curved fingers, flexible wrists for the best sound. Okay, well, the best way is to make sure your hand is relaxed. Okay, so you see how I'm dangling my arm. Okay, I'm actually going to hold my own arm and let the fingers hang. And I like to think of my fingers like wet clothes on a clothesline. So they literally drape and drip from the clothesline, very relaxed. Then you bring the stick, and I'm going to use a pen on my desk, and you bring them to the fingers, to the wet clothes on the clothesline. Okay, and you try to maintain as much of that shape, the wet rags or whatever, the wet clothes on your clothesline as possible. So you see now my pinky right there looks about right, and you see that there's a natural space in between the two fingers, the middle finger here, the middle two fingers, and then this first finger here. You see where I've placed the knuckle, the stick, just in between the first and second knuckle. So that's not doing anything at all. And then eventually you're just going to mold a little bit to the bow stick. And also on the other side, on the thumb, it's not locked. It's not bent and locked either. It is flexible, responsive. That's the thing. Now, another thing that I like to teach in bow technique is the concept that when you are playing, let's say I park the bow, okay, I'm literally gluing the bow stick and the hair to the strings. Now, the flexibility of the fingers is important, and we can train that. There's an important thing to think about for bow technique. There is what I call passive and active fingers. So in one of my YouTube tutorials called the Rocket Launcher, it's a YouTube short. You can find it if you type Lynn Kuo Rocket Launcher. It's one of my most popular tutorials. I show a pen, and this, you see how I have the wet clothes on the wet clothes on the clothesline. Bring the stick or the pen, and I'm just gonna turn that arm. So now I'm vertical. Now this becomes the rocket. Okay, rocket's going to go up. I'm actively going to use the muscles in my hand and fingers to actively move the bow up. And you see how that's curved. Everything's active now. I'm going to bring it back down. But I'm trying to, if you hold this is a key here. You hold this here. So it's not this. You see, this is an extension of the wrist, and this is a flexion of the wrist. What I'm trying to do is isolate just these joints here. So that's why I'm holding my arm here and not extending and flexing from the wrist. I'll just stabilize the wrist. So now I'm training the range of motion in the fingers of the bow hold. Now this is what I call active fingers. Now I want you to, if you want to take notes, I think of the fingers being both active or passive. This is active, actively bringing the bow up. This applies to bow technique in kole, placing the bow, and I actively do the rocket launcher here. Okay, so now you see the rocket launcher is applied in up bow and a kole. Kreutzer 7, Kreutzer 7, A2. So you see this rocket launcher, and this is what we call flick water position. This is all active, active. You see how the wrist is not even doing anything? This is wrist doing something, and we don't want that. Now, there's something called passive. So remember, if you're taking notes, active fingers. Now, we have something about passive fingers. Now, if I let's say press or glue the bow stick here, okay? Now, let me put it there. If I glue the bow stick onto the string, onto the instrument, now, look at my fingers. Okay, now I'm going to try to pull it down bow. Try to pull it down bow. Now, the fingers are staying on the stick, but you see how they are responsive? It's kind of like my fingers are legs, and they allow the knees to buckle. Now, you see, I'm trying to move this arm here, almost like someone's going to tug my sleeve down bow, and then the fingers are passively moving. Now you see the difference between active fingers, okay, no volume. Why is there no volume? Can anyone hear me? Can everyone hear my playing? That's weird. Can everyone hear the tone? Oh no. Can someone help me out here? No one can. Oh no. No one can hear me play? Let's see. Audio. Automatically adjust volume. Mic volume. Echo cancellation. Reduce mic background noise. Make sure you've pressed the volume on button. No, I have. Can anyone hear me talking? Hi, Chrysanthi. Volume is fine. Thank you. Volume is fine? Oh, okay. No, you're good. There's volume. Thank you, Chrysanthi. Hi, Chrysanthi. Okay, so active versus passive. Okay, Yoels, thank you. The volume is good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, Tone King, I can hear you. Thank you. Okay, so you see how I've parked my bow, and you see there's a misconception about bow technique that we have to do. I used to do this, by the way. I used to think that to get flexible bow change at the frog, I needed to do something here at the wrist. I need to do this. And no, that's not necessary. So then I started to realize that if we think of the fingers as passive, and how I like to think about it is I think of this bow stick like a sled. It's a sled, a dog sled, and these are, let's say, well, they're dogs sitting on the sled. Let's put it that way. So if the sled is moving on snow, the dogs are sitting on the sled. Okay, so they're kind of happy, they're lazy, they're kind of like, and they're just having a good time on the sled. Now, the sled is going to go down, they're going to change direction. So you see, I'm going up with the sled, down with the sled, up with the sled, down with the sled, up with the sled, down with the sled. And do you see how the fingers are now passive? So if you're going to write something down for bow technique, there are active fingers, but right now the fingers are passive. And the fingers, let's call them dogs on a sled. They're sitting on the sled doing nothing. The sled is going to change direction. And the dogs are just sitting on the sled. Okay, does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. Give me a thumbs up. I'm going to wait for your thumbs up, okay? So let me move to the next question because I only have half an hour before I teach my VIPs. Okay, Wendy Zohar. If you haven't played concertmaster with solos for a long period and suddenly you're called upon to step into this leadership role, what do you do to rise to the soloist mindset? How does one change roles from team member to leader and bring the soloist sound and a demonstrative form into your playing? Wow, great question, Wendy. Yeah. Oh, thank you, David. That's great. Shock absorbers that have both active and passive. Yes, shock absorbers are more passive. But remember that shock absorbers. Let's put it this way. For me, that's why I like to think of it as dogs. Dogs can totally relax on a sled, but if they need to leap into action, they will use their muscles and then they'll relax again. Yeah? In action and then relax. That's why I like to think of sled and dog. Okay? Okay. So, Wendy's question. If you haven't played concertmaster in a long time, well, yeah, that's happened to me a lot. It's happened to me because I sit assistant concertmaster. Sometimes I get called up to play concertmaster, but I don't know when that might happen. So that happens to me so often that I don't know when I'm going to have to step up from being a team player, a section player, or an assisting player to being the soloist voice. There's a couple of things. One, visualizing. Two, practicing with a recording. I do that a lot. I'm playing Swan Lake right now, and I am playing concertmaster for some of the shows, and so playing with the recording has helped me get into the mindset of being the concertmaster solos, playing the concertmaster solos. If you haven't done it in a long time, though, it's good for you to continue playing concerts outside of your career. So visualization, performing a lot, playing repertoire that encourages you to really challenge your technique and your expression really, really helps build the foundational confidence. If you're not accustomed to performing, then there is no bedrock, right, for you to build on fast. It's kind of like a building, an actual brick and mortar building. If you're not, let's say, building the foundation, your basement, and putting mortar and cement and bricks down, then it's much more difficult to build the windows and the roof on top and the windows that you need to step up. So if that's not possible, then what you can do is envision and visualize your house being built from the foundation up. I would say do a lot of practicing with the recording and doing a lot of run-throughs, okay? And then there's nothing really that simulates a real thing, but you can try to become as close as you can. I have personally found it extremely helpful to do countless number of run-throughs at home with a recording to help simulate the real thing, and do almost 30 run-throughs, 40 run-throughs, just to make sure almost feel like you're over-prepared. Okay. Anna, yes, I got your question about audition prep, and I've covered audition prep several times in my Audition Mastery Challenge, my Orchestra Audition Mastery Boot Camp. So I won't be able to cover everything because those were 3-day boot camps, and I also cover audition prep in my 12-week VIP coaching program. So I won't be able to address that question in a nutshell, and especially in the next 31 minutes, but I can try. Let me cut through some more questions here. Jane Woodside. Hi, Jane. Do you try to memorize passages to improve their flow? Or does it interfere with your ability to play from the music? That's a really interesting question, because sometimes when I play from memory and then my eyes go off the page, and then when I need to return to the page, yes, I get thrown off. So you're right, it is tricky. Memorizing the passages makes me feel like I can internalize the expression. So I do agree with your question. Memorizing the passage to improve the flow, yes, I agree with that. It does help me improve the flow, because then I can connect to the expression of the phrase rather than rely on visual dots. Music is not visual dots, as you and I know. Musical notation is an attempt to put down in a visual format what we want to express in an auditory way, in a sonorous way. So music comes from sound. So when we see dots on the page, they're trying to capture the expression and the sonority and the nuance with dots and lines on a page. So yes, I like this train of thought, Jane. When we memorize and not look at the dots, not look at the scratches and the lines and the letters and the names and the words, then we go closer to what music is, an organized form of sound and sonority and harmony. But you're right. Does it interfere with your ability to play from the music? Yes, it can when you go back to the music. So it is tricky. I'm not going to say it's easy, but if you can kind of remember also visually speaking, spatially on the page where things might lie, you might need to make efforts to do that. Where in the page does the next phrase start? Where does the next section start. That way maybe you can find things more easily if you go off on memory when you're using music. Hope I answered that question. Jan Burnett, I can't play fast, so how do I get there besides pushing to go faster and faster? And how do you play spiccato? Yeah, we have a couple of questions on spiccato. Okay. All right. So how do I play fast? Okay. There's no other way to play fast other than to develop your foundational technique first. So what I had said before about your left hand technique is important. Getting the foundations there so you're not flailing with your left hand. If you flail, that means you're not able to efficiently use your fingers. So playing fast means efficient use of technique. So left hand frame is one way to get efficient technique. And efficient technique will get you speed. Speed is also a function of being able to take your movements, whether they're large, slow means, well, slower movements will be paired with large movements, or large movements will be paired with slower music. So if you want to play fast, think about the ratios. When you want to play fast, things need to get smaller. What I'm talking about is both, bow usage in particular. Let's try this. Let's try it. I'm using a certain amount of bow. Now, if I want to get faster, you're going to notice that the bow usage, the amount of bow will get smaller. Does that make sense? Yeah? Oh, good. People are saying hi. Great. Jane, you're here. Jane, did I answer your question? I hope I answered your question. Hi, Mary. I see you here. Good to see you. Okay. I hope I'm answering the question about speed. So ratios of large, long bows, big bows to small bows. Efficiency in the left hand comes from the training of your left hand frame, what I had said to Sister Marie Therese. Let's see. Okay, good. Thanks, Jane. Okay, so we only have 27 minutes. Okay, so that is what I would suggest. Playing faster means training the efficiency of your technique. Okay, once your technique gets more and more efficient, your brain actually delivers the message to your muscles faster and faster and faster. That's just training. Okay. Okay, let's see. Audition prep. Pam. There's a couple audition prep. Anna, yes. Anna and Pam ask, what was preparing nervous student for audition, and how do you create a solid and functional audition prep routine to avoid giving up after a short time? Sorry, the question got a little bit cut off. I'm sorry. So unfortunately, I won't be able to answer this in a nutshell. I do 3 days of boot camp for this, a 3-day challenge, 3-day boot camp. I've covered this topic several times. How do you create a solid and functional audition prep routine? Okay, first of all, I've covered what I call a table framework. A 5-step framework for you to make sure that you are feeling confident for your audition. The most important thing, okay, Chrysanthi, I see your audition related question. Does it matter what you wear to an orchestral audition when you're behind a screen? No, I don't think so. No. Be comfortable, Chrysanthi. Okay, my table framework, let me go back to my table framework. The most important thing is obviously your technical mastery of the excerpts and your musical understanding of the excerpts. That's the central leg on a table. Sorry, a table can stand on one leg. So for me, I picture getting ready for an audition as a tabletop. You can put a table on one leg and hopefully it will stand. I don't have a table here. Pretend this is a table. Okay? So the rest of the table legs, we want this table leg to stand even more stable, in a more stable manner. So we need to add more legs around the table. So A, for me, stands for the A game mindset. So Anna, this is not an easy, quick solution, right? Practicing your mindset is a long-term solution. It's a lifetime value. It's a lifetime ritual that we set, a strategy that comes from almost like brushing your teeth every single day before you go to the dentist, okay? B is the next table framework leg. B is being able to control your body. And I'm stepping up for concertmaster solos, and I've been training to control my body tension. And that is not a quick solution either. Um, Solid and functional audition prep routine. Your question is solid and functional. So I don't have any quick solutions for anybody. I'm so sorry. How do you prepare a nervous student? Well, breathing is one. Start now if you can, but the best time to do it is every single day. Fit it into your lifestyle. Learn how to control your mind. Learn how to control your body. Both skills I teach in my VIP class. And if anyone wants to ask me more about my VIP coaching, I'm putting a link in the chat. Okay, so if you want to study with me and join my VIP coaching, there is a link in the chat if you want to talk about that. So I can go more in depth about how you train your mind and your body so that you're more prepared for an audition. Now, in terms of last minute preparation, then we get to the other legs of the table, L and E. L, table leg, means live simulation. Live simulation means you need to simulate the real thing as best as you can, and multiple times. And I like to use the analogy of the Olympic athletes. They do not compete in the Olympics for the first time without doing some run-throughs beforehand, almost for a year in advance. Okay, they're refining their skills. Same thing with us. If you really want to do well for an audition, you would think that giving yourself plenty of opportunities to test out your excerpts in many different situations, many different acoustics, many different times of the day, and in different locations and for different people, behind a screen, no screen, when you have coffee, no coffee, when you're extremely tired, when you're pressed for time, in front of someone you don't know, in front of people who really scare you. Pushing yourself to those limits is one of the biggest tips, and that comes under the table leg L, live simulation. Now, the E table leg, table leg for, yes, E, for me is called eliminate overthinking. This is a skill that I teach in my VIP coaching program. How do you go into a space where you do not let the left brain go crazy? And so let me give you an example. Yesterday I was playing Swan Lake, White Swan solo. My mind was going all over the place. So I have come up with several different methods to help direct my mind away from those thoughts and into creative flow states where I can connect better to the music. I don't have time to go into them now because I only have 22 minutes left before I teach. But if you want to know more about this kind of training, again, just click on the here. This is the link here, lynnkuo.com/free call form survey. I'm so sorry, that's a long link. I'm gonna have to ask my assistant to help me shorten that link. Free call form survey, okay? Oh, thank you, Mary. The 3-day master calls is wonder. I think you were talking about my orchestra audition mastery bootcamp or my audition mastery challenge. Okay, this is a good point here. Biofeedback techniques, do they work? Biofeedback. So what I do for breathing is I literally feel my own heartbeat. Right. I don't have time to do it now, but I've done it many times in my bootcamp, orchestra audition mastery bootcamp and audition mastery challenge. I also do it every single class with my VIPs. Biofeedback, the simplest one you can do is simply feel your own pulse. And I do that by touching my 2 fingers together. The biofeedback that you get from your own heart rate is good for you to know what's happening in your body. Then you can also train biofeedback in terms of getting ready for an audition. You're asking about how do I get a solid and functional audition prep routine. One of the biggest things that has helped me is learning how to calm my body down. Now, that's not a quick solution. I cover muscle tension and anxiety in another free workshop, an hour workshop that I gave for free. There's actually 2 workshops that I've posted on my YouTube channel. I gave them for free months ago. They're both called muscle tension. One's called muscle tension and secret killer of violin technique, and the other one's called muscle tension and performance anxiety. So I encourage you to watch those, because I talk about how you can actually decrease the tension in your body when you're auditioning. For me, a solid and functional audition prep routine is to include that, including how do I see my shoulders are trying to creep up. If I know I'm playing in an audition, I know I get tense. Am I able to control that tension when I play? So on top of being able to play the excerpts technically, which takes a long time to master, spiccato, for example. Speaking of spiccato, should I get to that question? So it's not an easy question to answer in 5 or 10 minutes. I would take a whole, couple of months to cover all of the table legs, right? The technique and musicality, time management, the A game, your mindset. Your mindset and your winning, your thoughts, your cognitive thoughts, and how we reframe them. Your B, how do we control your breath? How do we control your body? L, the live simulation. How are we ensuring that you are simulating the real thing and toughening yourself up for the stress? And E, how do we move your brain from overthinking into spaces where you can actually focus? I don't have time to cover it right now. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Mary. Yeah, Mary took my Audition Mastery Challenge. It was invaluable. I'm using all the techniques, and the breath exercise really works. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you. I'm starring that comment. And Richard, thank you so much. I'm glad you think this is fantastic. I'm so glad. Okay, let me get to spiccato in 5 minutes or less. Okay, let me share with you my spiccato tutorials. Here they are. I have an entire set of tutorials on spiccato. They're here. I'm putting them into the chat. Okay, so if you can't find them in the chat, then just simply Google Lynn Kuo spiccato tutorials. Let me give you a quick in a nutshell. Getting the bow to bounce. Okay, for me, there are two approaches to getting the bow to bounce. Okay, one I call the wild bounce method. It's as if I'm going to throw thumbtacks onto a drum. Or you can take a pen and just simply, ricochet this. This is what I call a wild bounce. It's wild and it bounces. You can apply the same philosophy with a bow. I'm just taking the bow and slapping. That's the one way to get a very crude bounce. What we're doing is we're getting the bow to bounce. Now, you add some horizontality to that. Instead of just coming from above, we're going to add some horizontality. There, wild bounce. Okay, so you see how the movement is very big and gross and large. So this goes back to the question of how do you get speed? This is a large movement, and when you make the large movement smaller and closer, the bounce gets closer, the stroke gets a little smaller, then we start to get a little faster, are we? You notice how we're getting faster? Now, this wild bounce starts to get closer. It's a little harsh at the moment. You can tell it's kind of noisy. A little bit more cushioned horizontality. Now this tempo is remaining steady, slow. This is called spiccato. So you see how we transition from slap, horizontal, and this horizontality is more like a saucer shape. Saucer, saucer, saucer. We get the saucer to come a little closer to the string. We're getting the hairs of the bow get closer to the string until they become mini saucers. Spiccato. This is spiccato. Little faster, little closer, little faster, little closer, little faster, little closer, and we get faster. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If we think of this as 16th notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you take a metronome and put it at about 100, quarter note equals 100, and you play 16th notes, you will start crossing the border between spiccato and sautille. Okay? Spiccato, for me, I think of spiccato as one muscular direction or impulse for each stroke. Each stroke. But once I get into faster strokes, I start to think of sautille as two ricochets, two bounces with one impulse, going down, up. See how my wrist just bounced, or my hand bounced at the wrist? Down, up, down, up, down, up. So if I do down, up, down, up, down, up. So I kind of do a ricochet where I slap the bow down, and the up bow comes naturally. Kind of like this. And I just do a series of down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, focusing on the downs. Down, 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 up, 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 down, up. Okay? So that's coming from the wild bounce method. Now we go to the other side. I have two ways of teaching off the string strokes. The other side, if I see a student of mine who's, let's say someone's in my coaching program, they have trouble with sautille or spiccato, then I will see which way they're having trouble. If they have no trouble with wild bounce, then they don't have that issue. But let's say they're trying to play Schumann, scherzo. And so let's say they have trouble getting this to bounce. So then I will get them to the wild bounce method. But if they have trouble getting the other way, then I might get, or let's say a person has trouble with spiccato and their bounce is way too wild. it's just uncontrollable. It's just very, very wild and it bounces too much. Then I get them to go the other direction, stay on the string first. Instead of the opposite of wild bounce method is gluing the bow on the string first and doing a very fast détaché. So I'm actually heavy into the string. And it's not very much bow. And eventually, if you remember, if I said down, up, down, up, down, up, I focus on the downs. Down, up, down, up. It's almost like I'm taking a basketball, tap. I tap the basketball, tap. And I'm focusing on the down for the tap, 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 tap it, 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 tap it. So when you do a détaché, if you focus on the down, up, downs on the down, up, eventually you're going to notice that the springiness of the stick and the springiness of the hairs and the springiness of the string, you're going to feel it's like jumping on a trampoline. Duck it, duck it, duck it, duck it, duck it, and then you'll get the hang of it. Okay, I start to get the hang of it. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah? That's spiccato in a nutshell. I encourage you to find my spiccato tutorials. Okay, one more time. I'm going to copy this. Spiccato tutorials here. All right. Okay, I have some more questions coming in. So sorry, Chrysanthi, I see your question here. Good ways to practice keeping vibrato going through no changes. You're talking about continuous vibrato, I think. Yeah, I have continuous vibrato in my vibrato tutorial playlist. It's in there. It's a really short tutorial. So Chrysanthi, go find it. Basically, the quick answer to that is double stops. Practice continuous vibrato in double stops, and then you'll be able to transfer vibrato from note to note. Okay. Big sound in high positions. Okay, I got 12 minutes left. Okay, big sound in high positions. This is the question from Derek Kambika. Big sound in high positions. And I think there's another question here about appassionato. Anne Brugman. Hello. Nice to see you. Are you there? Yes, Chrysanthi, go find that continuous vibrato tutorial. It's a YouTube short, really short tutorial. Basically, double stops is the way I would recommend. Okay, Anne Brugman's question: which bow and vibrato parameters do you recommend for something that is appassionato, like the beginning of the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto? And also this question about Ray Randall's question, best exercises for a singing quality tone. Let me see if I can combine all these questions together. And sound in the 6th position and above. Okay. This is getting complicated because then we're trying to get into sound production. Okay, so again, I have an entire playlist on sound production. Let me put it in the chat. Okay, it's in the chat now. So if you Google Lynn Kuo violin sound production, you will find the answers to some of your questions. Past 6th position and appassionato. Let me see if I can combine these questions. Okay, so we're here. And your question about appassionato, and this is also 6th position. Pay attention first and foremost to the bow. Okay, vibrato will come second. First and foremost, with the bow, what do I mean? What the heck are we listening to with the bow, right? Your question is, when we're up high in 6th position and further up, we want to make sure that we're in a good contact point. The higher, I've done many tutorials on this, the bow contact point will have to be a little bit closer to the bridge as the higher you go. So that's number one. When you're in 6th position, take a look at the contact point. I would play closer to the bridge. Cameron, is this playlist applicable to viola too? Yes, it is. Okay. Okay, so when we're up here, what you're doing, first and foremost, the biggest thing I would say too is using your ear. 100% use your ear. And then use your critical brain to understand, is this sound what I want? For example, I'm in the 6th position or whatever position this is. Okay, that tells me I'm not playing a good sound. So if I'm playing high, like that, the contact point's too close. And perhaps the bow's too fast or slow. So let me slow the bow down. That's improving. So when you start to understand how speed, there's 3 different variables, main variables that Simon Fisher talks about in the bow. Speed is the first one that we need to listen for. So when you're asking, how do I improve sound production? Singing tone, okay? How do I play in the sixth position? Understand these three variables. And again, the sound production tutorial playlist is going to explain all of these things. Once you know these variables, then you know how to use them in a critical and analytical manner. Meaning that if my speed is too slow, this is slow. You can hear the sound, okay? Using your ear and say, well, wait a second, my sound, there's only two types of poor sound. Crunchy, right? This is crunchy. But if I manipulate the most important, or the first variable of sound, speed, let me just do the same contact point, same pressure, but increase the speed. If the sound is already improved. So that's one thing that you can start listening for. Use the ear and say, do I like this sound? Yes or no. Is it crunchy? Or is it raspy and whistly? That's raspy, whistly. Like that. So there's only two types of sound. Is it one or the other? And I explain all of this in my sound production tutorial playlist. Okay? Lynn Kuo, sound production. Find the whole playlist. So then you work backwards. I work like a detective when I practice. So if I'm in sixth position, Lynn said to play a little closer to the bridge. But if I'm closer to the bridge and you play the bow speed too fast, that's raspy. So if it's raspy, adjusting the bow speed slower. Let's try slower. Same contact point. You see the same contact point, but now the bow speed is slower. And now the sound is already improved. So it really starts depending on your knowledge and intelligent manipulation of these variables. Speed of the bow. Pressure of the bow. Pressure of the bow will adjust automatically when you change the speed of the bow. Then once you change the speed and the pressure, your contact point will also change. Now, when I talk about sound, I talk about V, A, P, P, S. I include vibrato, V, into the equation, as well as A. So if you're not able to keep a straight bow, the angle of the bow, that's what happens. So this is why when I work with sound, when I look at the variables of sound, yes, speed, pressure, and contact point. But don't forget the angle of your bow is important and the vibrato. Now, in terms of, well, thank you so much for these comments. Oh, you're brilliant. Thank you, Cameron and V King. Thank you for that. Oh my God, that's so sweet. Okay, I got 7 minutes. Okay. I hope I'm answering these questions well enough. Okay, let me speak to Helga Clem, your quick string crossings tutorial question. String crossings. The biggest thing that I see for string crossing, or I mean that's a really specific example. String crossings. What you want to do is use your eyes to make sure that your bow is crossing the two strings as close as you're placing the bow like a double stop across these two strings. Look at your two strings like they're railroad tracks, the left side and the right side of a railroad track. Place the bow on both. Double stop. Okay? That's a double stop. Now, I see a mistake of people going too wide over those two railroad sides. So you put the bow across the two sides of the railroad track and keep them like this. Now, you want to practice being able to cross to let's say the A string by releasing the D string, the lower string. See, my bow barely moved. Go back and back. Now we're going to release the top string. We're going to release that one. There. So you see, basically my bow is barely moving angle. Barely. That's one of the secrets to fast string crossings. Be aware of how big your angles are. If they're too seesaw, like you're riding a teeter-totter on the playground, your angles are too big. Your angle's too wide, too big, too gross. So if you want a faster string, it's the principles of physics. If you want something to go faster for string crossing, you make them smaller. There, see? There. So if you make your angle big, you're going to have a hard time with string crossings. Yeah? Start with double stop. See, watch my bow. Sorry, I hit the microphone. Oh, I got 4 minutes before I teach. that slows me down, and it looks difficult. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Any other questions? Oh my gosh. Anyone's here? How to perfect my playing? Savita Tarinda. I hope I saying your name correctly. I hope I gave you some clues. How to perfect my playing. Let me answer that actually. It's a general question, but this is how we improve as musicians. First and foremost, your technique. Technique for the violin is split into left-hand technique, and so we need drills. So I recommend Shradik, okay? I think it's pronounced Shradik, first page. Then I recommend Dunis, Opus 12. Opus 12, remember that, Opus 12. These are great for your left-hand dexterity. I also recommend double stops. If you really want to challenge double stop, go to my website and find Korgiev double stops. It's very difficult to find these exercises. Double stops. Okay, sorry, I can't get the link right now, but if you go to my website, you will find a free download there. That will train left hand independence. So we have left hand speed and dexterity. For Shradik will help you with speed and dexterity. Dunas will help you with control of the left hand. Korgiev double stops will help you with finger independence, as well as other Dunas exercises. Now, moving over to the other side of technique, right hand. Right hand, you will want to be able to control the bow. I talk about the 4 C's of bow control. C, control, contact, consistency, and contact point. That was really quick, I'm so sorry. But you have to come into my VIP classes if you want more of this topic. So we have left hand, right hand technique. Now, if you want to improve your playing in general, those are the 2 main things. But do not forget, there's 2 other, so that's category number 1. Category number 2 is to develop your musicality. Now, musicality comes from your understanding of harmony, theory, right? So when you understand harmony and theory, then you start to understand melodies and the structure and the colors of different things. So understanding phrasing. Then you want to move into musicianship. Okay, musicianship can also encompass musicality, but musicianship, I think, encompasses things like being able to control your tempo, consistent pulse. Are you able to keep a consistent pulse? And when you're able to keep a consistent pulse, can you divide this pulse into 1, 2, triplets, triplet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, quintuplets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tuplets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's rhythm and pulse. Okay, those are musicianship skills. All right, so these are kind of broad topics to cover, and they take a lot of time to master. I hope that answers your question. How do I perfect my playing? It's not just technique, it's not just musicality, but also musicianship skills. 1 minute. I better stop now. Okay, so I better stop now because I have to I have to move to teaching my VIPs. If you want more of this kind of work, I do work with my VIPs. But teaching in 1 minute. So if you want to get into my classes, if you want coaching with me, if you want one-on-one help, apply for a call on my calendar. I'm extremely busy right now with Swan Lake, but I do have some pockets of time if you want to speak to me about entering into my coaching program. It is my pleasure, Chrysanthi. I'm so glad to see you again. So cool to see you again, because Chrysanthi was in my Audition Mastery Challenge not long ago. So I'm glad to see you back. And maybe one day you'll join us inside VIP. Okay, so if you want to join my VIP class, we meet every week. I hold classes multiple times a week. I hold practice sessions, and I also bring in guests. So give me a contact, fill out the form, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. It is my pleasure to hang out with you. I did it out of love for the art form and to wish you all the best. Okay, take care, everybody. Have a great week.